Hi, I'm Dan. Thanks for checking in on Dimgaard. Presented another session of the new campaign that I'm working on. And over the course of the past couple of days, a topic came up that I thought might be interesting and useful. In these topics, I'm not looking to replicate information that you're getting in other channels. I appreciate that, the Dungeon Dudes and Colville, their presentation is much better than mine, much more fluid, it's scripted, the presenters are more charismatic, the production value is significant, right? It's not just some guy sitting at his desk in his home office type thing. So I get that. So I'm not looking to say, oh, I'm going to go to this guy for this. I'm going to Dimgaard for this information instead of, I'm looking for elements of the game that you're not going to be getting somewhere else. And this is one of those topics. It does come up with, and so the topic is as players move from casual play to kind of a pretty serious hobbyist, very often they will begin delving into optimization strategies and game theory, character building type things. And, I have to say I'm an expert on that type of thing. I have, friends come to me for optimization questions and ideas. But anyway, one of the very common things that comes up when players move into that area is, I would like to have unlimited spells. Right? I'm tired of running out of spell slots, particularly in Dimgaard. Dimgaard really does very, very focused on the adventuring day, the 6 to 8 encounters without a long rest. And when you really implement that rigorously, PCs run out of spell slots. That's just the way it's deliberate. That's the way the game is structured. And whenever you're implementing the game as it is intended, that is the byproduct. So it's not unusual. I wish I had a bunch more spell slots, maybe an indefinite number of spell slots. And so there are a couple of ways under the rules as written that I'm aware of to achieve that effect. That 100% are compliant with the rules as written. I'm going to get into those, and then I'm also But what happens also very frequently is a player thinks, oh, I've got this great new way of doing that. And those almost always break down under scrutiny. And that's what happened over this past couple of days. And I'll get into the specifics of this instance and to show what I'm talking about. So under the rules as written, one way to do this, and this one I actually see in play, like I see players in campaigns that I've played in use this, and also I've had a few players in my Dimgaard campaign do, and this 100% works. So you take a combination of wizard and warlock and sorcerer, right? So before you complete a short rest, before you take a short rest, you convert your warlock spell slots to sorcery points, and then channel those into sorcerer spell slots. You take your short rest, your warlock spell slots replenish, right? And so you can do that all again, and you do it as many times as you can take a short rest, which is an hour a whack. So you have players in that situation say, hey, how many short rests can I complete before we actually begin playing? And you're like, oh, you have like 9 hours. It's like 9 short rests. Boom! I got a bunch of sorcery spell slots, right? That 100% works. And whenever you now some DMs will preclude it. Some DMs find that as abusive and cheesy and will preclude it. But it is 100% compatible with the rules as written. And I allow it in my Dimgaard campaign because eventually you do take a long rest and it all resets, right? Everything comes back to the baseline when you take a long rest. Those sorcery spell slots do not persist across a long rest. So I don't find it to be particularly cumbersome as a DM or as a designer. So that one I've seen and I allow and I'm okay with. Although some DMs will implement rules variations to preclude that. So the other way under the rules as written, and I do not allow this one. I have specific rules variations to present. Is change simulacrums, right? So if you look at the simulacrum spell, the target is one creature, which is a requirement of being able to trigger a spell glyph. In order to store a spell in a spell glyph, it has to target a single creature or an area of effect. So simulacrum is a valid spell to be stored in a spell glyph. So the idea is that you're at least a 13th level wizard. Rather than cast simulacrum directly, you store it in a spell glyph, right? So that you are the one who triggers it. And then you take your long rest so that you have your full complement of spells, right? And then you trigger your spell glyph so that the simulacrum is cast on you. And you create a simulacrum that now has your full complement of spell slots, including your 7th level spell slot. And then your simulacrum can do that same thing. They can store their simulacrum spell into a spell glyph, and then you trigger the spell glyph again. You create a new simulacrum, right? And if you look at the wording and you say, well, wouldn't the first simulacrum go away? No. So the wording of simulacrum is that if you cast simulacrum again, all existing simulacrums go away, but you're not the one casting simulacrum. Your simulacrum is the one that casts simulacrum, right? So the existing simulacrum stays, and you create a new simulacrum with all your spell slots. And that one does the same thing. So it's already a problem, right, at 13th level, right? Because you're limited only. You can do that. It costs 1,250 gold pieces, and you have to have access to snow or ice. But you can do that once every day of downtime. So if you have 10 days of downtime between adventures, you've got 10 simulacrums popped up, right? So that's a problem in itself. And these do not reset on the long rest. Those guys are there for the duration until they are hit with the dispel magic or something. So that's already a problem. But then it gets to be just game breaking when you hit 18th level, because at 18th level you don't even need to do the change simulacrum, right? So I'm just going to cast simulacrum at 18th. And now my simulacrum comes in. Even though they can't cast simulacrum, they can cast wish. And who cares if there's a 33% chance that simulacrum can't ever cast wish again? It's a simulacrum. It could never cast wish again anyway, because it can't regain the 9th level spell slot. So there, when you have simulacrums casting wish, it becomes game breaking. In addition to the potential of chaining simulacrums. So I do not allow this. I have a rules variation in my game. It's in the Dimgaard campaign guide. It's recommended to all DMs that simulacrums cannot cast simulacrum themselves, and that they cannot cast any spell above 7th level. So that takes care of that problem in a pretty straightforward, direct way that preserves the intent of the simulacrum spell and preserves the integrity of the game. But under the rules as written, you can 100% do that. You can chain simulacrums using spell glyphs, and each one of those simulacrums can cast wish if you're 18th level, and you can just have unlimited wishes. Well, limited only by the fact that you have to have access to snow or ice to construct the simulacrums, and each one costs 1,250 gold pieces, 250 for the spell glyph and 1,000 for the simulacrum. So yeah, those are the two ways under the rules as written to achieve the effect of unlimited, limited only by like gold or circumstances or the need to take a long rest, spell slots. So the thing that came up in this new campaign, a player, they conjured elemental, and then they conjured a conjured celestial, and then planar bound the coatl, so that it's there permanently. And then the coatl has the change shape ability. And I said, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this coatl change shape into, like, serially this indefinite number of humanoids that all have innate spellcasting, so they can use each of their innate spellcasting abilities. And I wasn't really so the first session or maybe two that he did this, I wasn't really paying attention. But then after the second one, I was like, man, that coatl's casting a bunch of spells. And then I looked at after the game. I didn't interrupt the game. And I do not recommend that. Like when something comes up in your game and you think that doesn't really seem right to me. Your default position should be to trust your players, right? More than your recollection, particularly if it's not something that you've researched or something that you have a pretty that you have a good recollection of. I mean, some things come up, like I will occasionally, like even last night, I'm going to use my Eldritch Blast to destroy this altar. Like, well, Eldritch Blast has got to target a creature. I know that, right? It's like it's come up with such degree that I just know that. And then the player's like, oh, it's like, oh yeah, you're right. But I'm not going to do that in this fringe case, right? Where this Quaddle is casting all of these spells because it changed shape to a different humanoid with innate spell casting over and over again. But finally, I took a look at it. I had time this past week, and I was like, oh yeah, I see what you're doing, and that doesn't work, right? Because the change shape ability, it tells you the specific things that when the Quaddle changes shape that it acquires, and so in particular it gains all the actions, right? Although all the actions of the new humanoid. And those will replace the Quaddle's actions unless there is a bite. And if there's a bite, then the Quaddle retains its own bite. And then any other statistics, right, that the Quaddle doesn't already have, it gains those of the humanoid. And then it like specifically replaces some statistics like strength and dexterity and armor class. I think I forget. But it tells you specifically. It requires any additional statistics that it doesn't have, and of the new humanoid, it will replace this specific set of statistics. Well, a Quaddle already has innate spellcasting, and it is not one of the statistics that is replaced by the shape change, by the change shape. So the Quaddle does not get to replace its innate spellcasting with the innate spellcasting of the humanoid that it changes shape into. So it uses its own innate spellcasting and does not acquire the innate spellcasting of the new creature. The only way that it would be if you had some way of stripping innate spellcasting off of the Quaddle to begin with, so that when it changes shape, innate spellcasting is not something that it already has, and it would acquire the innate spellcasting of the humanoid. But that's not the case. And so the player did not like that. He thought that he had found a really smooth, clever way to get unlimited spells. And it's disappointing when you discover that, oh yeah, that's not the case. That I did not break the game the way I thought it was. Yeah, so that's what happened. If you found this interesting or useful, it would be great if you smash the like button, even subscribe. I'm going to try to get one of these out every week. It comes from my game. My game tends to implement a lot of fringe cases. I find those interesting and like to present them to good players to see what they do with them. And so if you find that type of thing interesting and helpful, hit the like button, subscribe. Those help others get to this channel, which is a good thing for me. And I think for the game as well. And if you catch me on social media, I'm usually pretty easy to recognize. By all means, I hope you will engage me there. It's always nice to talk to interested people. And thanks again. Hi, it's Dan again. So in reviewing the video, I noted a mistake that I made. So the total cost to combine Spellglyph with Simulacrum is not $12.50, it's $1,700. It's $200 for the Glyph of Warding and $1,500 for the Ruby Dust that you have to use as the component in the Simulacrum. So that was a mistake that I made. I was going off of my memory without reference, and I don't think I necessarily apologize for that. I mean that's just inherent in doing that sort of thing. But I did want to correct that. That also introduces another constraint that within the rules as written, the DM can use to preclude the the chain simulacrums. But and that is to just make Ruby Dust unavailable, right? So no one has any Ruby Dust. You're out of luck, right? But I don't like doing that, because then you completely eliminate Simulacrum, which I do think that Simulacrum adds to the game, that it is an interesting spell, and that when it is when there's a constraint in place that keeps it from breaking the game, that I like it as part of the game. I like having wizards with a simulacrum at their disposal. So anyway, so that's but that is a correction I wanted to make.